I tried running Linux Lite on a Mac from 2008, and it works surprisingly well. But what can we do on it? Well, let's find out. But first, if you want to check out more videos, I've got a playlist here. If you watch them, I won't ask for likes and subscribes. I did try Ubuntu and Windows on here before Lite, but Ubuntu wouldn't connect to Wi-Fi, so that was a dead end, and my Windows boot drive wouldn't even show up in the BIOS. If you want to see Windows on a Mac, I could give this another go in a different video, so tell me in the comments. So, how do you install Linux on a Mac? Quite easy as it turns out. Just make a boot drive using Rufus. After downloading the ISO, boot it on your machine through the BIOS, click install, follow the on-screen prompts, and you should be done. Obviously, it's usually never that easy, but this time it was. There's even a nice pop-up guide to help new users. One thing that I had to do manually was force VSync on. For web browsing and such, it's not really an issue, but it could be annoying for games, videos, etc. Link on how to do that will be in the description. Now back to the experience. All the drivers installed correctly. I had access to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, USB ports, speakers, and all that stuff. I do like how close the experience is to Windows, with some obvious clunk here and there. Considering it's a different OS entirely, the UI ran at a solid 60 FPS when doing basic tasks, which considering the age of the hardware is pretty impressive. Web browsing was fine, some sites took more than a few seconds to load, but Twitter, YouTube, Wikipedia, Reddit, etc. all ran fine, if not a bit laggy at times. I was even able to screen record, although anything higher than YouTube Playback basically destroyed the frame rate. YouTube Playback was pretty much capped to 720p 30 FPS for a consistent experience, but 1080-30 was doable on some videos. 60 FPS was out of the picture altogether. The webcam even worked, so in theory I could use this for Zoom. Not bad for a free computer. Now onto the most exciting bit, gaming. Well, not really, but it was interesting to say the least. First I tried game streaming through xCloud. When the Wi-Fi speeds were good, the picture quality was good. I didn't see much compression or artifacting, but the main issue was the input lag. It felt like half a second. For games like Forza Horizon 4, that was basically unplayable, unfortunately. Now onto the natively installed games. First up is Battlefront 2 2005, which ran at 30 FPS with 600p low settings. Not great, but it was fairly playable, and I did get a bit carried away with it. Definitely not the worst experience. The load times between matches were just over a minute. Flatout 2 next, at 540p on lowest settings, we got somewhere between 20 to 30 FPS. It's usable, but surprisingly slow considering I've run it on weaker hardware before. No surprises here, Undertale ran at a locked 30 FPS in full screen. I've yet to find a supported system that can't run this game well. Last but not least is Minecraft. This was really good all things considered. At 600p we saw a fairly consistent 30 FPS. Especially at the start, it did have some huge stutters, but after 10 minutes or so, once all the chunks were properly loaded, it was definitely playable. There was one thing, because of the age of this machine, there are a lot of games that either ran in the single digits or wouldn't even boot. Superhot Mind Control Delete crashed the system, Hollow Knight wouldn't boot both under native and Proton modes, Euro Truck Simulator 2 boots, but is completely unplayable even at 720p low, Dirt 4 gave 4 warnings, then wouldn't boot past the launcher. When I tried to run under Proton, it reinstalled itself, which took about 4 hours, and it still didn't work. Celeste and Muck ran at about 5 FPS, weirdly slow, but literally unplayable. After trying all these games, some gave me a reason as to why they didn't work. It seemed to be that my system doesn't support the latest OpenGL and Vulkan drivers, so even though it says they're up to date, my games run worse than they should as a result. As if we have much room to work with in the first place. Even Linux can't fully save this system. So that's the video. In conclusion, I was impressed with just how much I could do with a computer that's older than Minecraft itself, possibly even some people watching right now. Wow, I feel old. And if I had to use it for anything else other than video editing and gaming, then I could actually use it. If you like the video, go give Linux a go. You might be surprised how well it works. See ya.